Oye, mi gente, you're listening to the Red Lips Real Talk podcast,
where we talk about life, love, and everything in between.
You already know. It's time to get real.
Dale. We often believe that strength protects us, that intelligence protects us, that discipline, training, and life experience protect us from making risky decisions. But sometimes the greatest risk does not look like danger. It can look like love. It looks like loyalty. It looks like keeping your family together at all costs. Our guest today is a former United States Marine born and raised in New York. She's highly trained, highly capable, and she is someone who understands strategy, risk, and consequence. She fell in love with a man who was living in the United States as a legal resident. They got married, and together they built a life and welcomed a daughter, also born in New York. After her husband was arrested for breaking the law, he was deported to his home country in the Middle East. But that's when everything changed. For security reasons, she will remain anonymous, and her name has been changed. But her story is very real and very raw. Today's show is about reclaiming your power, raising awareness that love alone is never enough to sacrifice your life. Please note this show includes moments of verbal and mental abuse, which may be triggering to some of our listeners. So with that, let's give a warm welcome to Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca.
Hello, ladies.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, telling us your story.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a, like we say, proud Latina from New York, born and raised from a single mother household. The basics, New York, running around, 9 to 5, working, going to school on your own. It's not easy coming from a single parent home. Watching my mom struggle to get food on the table and, keep on going and persevering day to day. I went to school, worked at the same time, put myself through college, joined the military, and, just live a basic life, and never imagining that what the world awaits.
Yeah. Did you always know you wanted to be a Marine?
Yes.
Really? What was the calling for? Like, what did you feel?
Well, I remember being young, watching G.I. Joe. Some people out there. I thought I was G.I. Jane.
Wow.
And I just love, again, not to sound so weird, I love guns. It was just something, I guess, a power thing. And,
Yeah.
And I imagine protecting. I just have this thing of, I think it's a Taurus thing. But, I love protecting. And, I used to watch those shows. And I say, I want to join the military.
Wow.
And if I'm going to join the best branch.
Yes.
No disrespect to anybody, but the Marines, and I think people say, go to the Navy, go to something more, more for women. I said, no, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this all the way. And I'm going to the hardest one, which is the President's own. It's the Marines.
Yes.
Yeah. That's exactly what
it's very hard to become a Marine and a female Marine at that. So congratulations. Kudos to you. You're a tough cookie.
Thank you for your service.
Yes. Thank you for your service. So now fast forward. How did you meet your ex?
So I had just gotten back from the military and I went into doing cocktail waitressing at a cabaret. And, he was friends with the owner. He used to do business. He used to sell some merchandise and clothing. And he sat on my bar and, say, hey, what can I get you? And from there, we just locked eyes. And to me, he was so exotic.
Did you feel like Cupid hit your heart? Like it was love at first sight, kind of?
Kind of, yeah. He was exotic. He was older. He was just so like this older gentleman. And
he was handsome.
Yes, and he bought me champagne.
Wow.
Because he's like, he goes, wait, you want to drink with me? I say, okay. He goes, so get whatever you want.
Nice.
It's like, oh, don't say that. I'm a waitress, this is my bar. And he said, whatever you want. And I was like, okay, well, I want champagne. He goes, then go for it.
Okay.
We exchanged numbers and that was it, It was,
so you started like a love affair. You were dating.
Yes.
How long were you dating for before you ultimately got married?
We were dating officially we got married in 2003.
Okay.
And then we had a huge wedding, because weddings take a lot of money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, they do.
So, and so officially we got married on the books. We went to court in 2003, and then in 2006 we had our wedding.
Okay.
So yeah.
So it was a big, beautiful wedding.
It was a different wedding. It was not what I really wanted, but at that moment you're like, let me just go with it.
Okay.
This is something different. It was not the typical wedding that just get why. I think I changed like 5 times. It's the tradition.
Yeah.
It's the Arabic tradition
Yeah.
that you have to change like 3 or 4 times. I was let inside a box. I mean, literally, you don't walk in. They
Wow.
bring you in a box.
So you had a very traditional wedding, and more like on the Arabic side. Is that what I'm understanding?
Definitely.
Okay. And
Definitely.
you were obviously very open to it and accepting of it. Never had a problem.
Loved it. I was just like, I felt like a queen.
Okay.
I was just being fussed over. They were putting these beautiful, gorgeous gowns, and I was being brought in a box, and they were singing to me. I didn't know what the hell they were saying, but you just go with the moment. I loved him, and I was like, oh, this is such a beautiful
Yeah.
culture, and it was just, I was in awe.
How did your family on your side, what do you think their perception of that type of wedding was? Were they open to it like you?
They, my mom was saying, oh, esto es como, say in Spanish, el sueño de Aladdin, ¿no? Aladdin.
Aladdin. Okay.
Yeah, they were skeptical, because they had heard about a certain movie,
Right.
certain perceptions about, the religion itself, Islam, and the people, and how sometimes when you mix these kinds of factors, they don't work out. So they were, but they said it was a beautiful wedding, and, but something different.
Yeah.
They-
So overall, your marriage in the United States, give us an idea, a background of how your marriage was when you were in the United States together with your daughter.
Well, in the beginning, obviously, my daughter didn't come till like 7 years. It was, 7 years later. We met. It was beautiful in the beginning, but then, he had issues already with immigration. So again, things that you say, okay, they're going to be resolved. It's not going to be an issue. And you have that hope, you have that faith that this is going to work out. I believe in, me as an American. I'm like, no, the justice is going to prevail. And he's, this is just minor things, silly things that, happened when he was 20. So, I didn't really think much. We had hope, but then he was stopped on his way back into the US, which, I understand everybody has, but I think he had already paid for his infraction a long time ago.
Okay.
And he was stopped. And, and that's when the nightmare began, the immigration nightmare. I never imagined myself in that, but,
Yeah.
here's this man and I was not going to leave him. You do the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it okay for us to ask you what it is that he did, or you don't feel comfortable with that question?
Yeah, no. I mean, it was, again, it was an infraction. I think he was like 2021, and, his brother with drugs, not heavy drugs, hashish. And it was just a case that they had come into Canada. The brother was sent back automatically.
Okay.
But somehow that carried over with him. And, he was 2021, I think, at the time. And, he was a kid himself. And, you do stupid mistakes. I'm not
Yeah.
justifying it.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
But he already paid for it,
Yeah.
I just didn't think that you have to pay again. And but not was he just paying? I was paying too.
Yeah.
I chose to pay. So that's what love does to you.
How old was he when he came to the United States from his country?
Oh, he was, I think, 17 or 18. He hustled
Wow.
some money in his country. He was selling things like that. And he hustled to get himself here. He was like 17, 18.
So it's important to say that his entire life and formative years was in Islam and in his country. So he grew up in that heavily in that environment. Okay.
And his family still lives, like his whole family still lives over there, or are they here?
The majority lives there. There was only 2 relatives. Well, at that point there was only 2 relatives that came. He helped to come.
And once he was here, he was traveling back and forth. Was it like a consistent traveling back and forth, or?
Not really. He did travel once in a while, because most of the time he was just here. He did the wholesale and retail type of thing. So he didn't travel a lot. So no, he was just here. He did send money. He took care of his family. That I have to say, he's an excellent son. He would take care of his mom and dad, and being from countries that are not able to provide for themselves, he would provide for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So he left the country?
Yes.
And then they wouldn't allow him back in.
Okay. Yeah. The second time when I met him, yes. So he came in. He was actually traveling back from his country, and he came back, and they stopped him, and they say, hey, back in 19 something, and they say, we're going to hold on to your passport and your residency, and, you're going to have to hire a lawyer and come back for this. And he's like, but why, And at that point, I was like, well, what's happening? He said, it's just technical stuff. Don't worry. We'll just hire a lawyer. It's not a big deal. And obviously it was not that simple.
Yeah.
Right.
So they took his residency. They held on to it. Well, they say, we're going to hold on to it. And that's exactly what they did. And, the battle began, hiring lawyers, paying all this money.
And that is a fortune. I can't even imagine.
And at the end, there's no guarantee. Right. I can say, truly, we spent over $80,000.
I believe you.
Wow.
I believe you.
And it's just, false hope, in the end. And you don't want to compare, but you compare other cases that I've known. And I said, my husband, okay, I'm not justifying it, but just something so small compared to other heinous crimes. And no, there's no way we're going to win this.
Yeah.
But
So, Rebecca, I have a question for you. When did you decide that you were going to go move to the Middle East to be with your husband, with your child? How did that happen?
So an accumulation of years and, devotion and love, and obviously after the marriage. And it happened that, again, he got into trouble and a misdemeanor. So when you combine that with a prior deportation, having to deal with narcotics, if you may call it, that is grounds for deportation. So he, again, all this time we had, we're fast forwarding because at one point, remember, he came back, everything was great. We hired a lawyer. We went back and forth. But until one day they said, no, we're going to detain you. We're going to deport you. So he spent 3 months they were trying to deport him. The lawyer did what he had to do. I never fought so much in my life. But besides boot camp.
Yeah.
Again, so God is great in that sense that I just kept faith. He's going to get out. He's going to get out, even though a lot of other factors were around, including people from his family, and he got out, and I say, this is it, he's meant for me. There's no way I will leave him. And I knew if I left him, he would have been deported, because with his family that was trying to help him, quote unquote, was not. Sadly to say, sometimes the people closest to you are the ones that stab you. And that's what was happening.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I say, I can't leave him. I'm not going to leave him. I know I've only met him a couple of months ago because, when he was incarcerated the first time in immigration jail, again, based on that prior misdemeanors, he was there for a couple of months, and I said, I'm not leaving him. I can't. I feel bad for this man. He has nobody. So now fast forward many years later, talking about 7 years later, another misdemeanor, again, not justifying it. So he gets arrested and they put him on probation. So what happens is with the probation, obviously you have to go every month. So right now, if you are put in the system that you have probation, they don't even tell you. They just come and get you. This is a crazy story. The agent came to pick him up because he told him this afterwards. He goes, I came to come and get you at your house, and I saw you coming out with your daughter, and I couldn't take you. They said, you know what? I can't do this. So what happened is that they ended up sending him a letter and saying, come to the probation office, because at that point, after his arrest, he paid a fine, whatever. Again, it was a misdemeanor, and he was on probation. So he would go every month, report, sign, whatever. And then, so they sent him a letter, say, you got to come back. And he felt it, and I felt it. And he said, this letter doesn't seem right. I said, well, just go. You always comply. Just go. Maybe he goes, why are they telling me to go back again? And it was because the agent had said, you know what, let the probation officer, and they'll grab him. And I remember that morning that he went, and I looked at him, and my daughter, she was, I think, like maybe 5-6 months. Yeah, she was a baby. And she grabbed him. She started crying. Like she felt him that he was leaving because it was really early in the morning. And she looked at him, and she just looked at him, and he just looked at her. And I looked at him. I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. I'm like, God, please don't let him go away. And my daughter just started crying, like going with her hands. And you know, like, I don't know, maybe she felt it.
Yeah.
They've always such a strong bond. And he grabbed her. He just like, you could see him tearing.
So she was a baby.
And she was a baby.
Wow.
She was a baby. And then she, you know, obviously he put her down. He just looked at me. He left. And that's when they detained him. Immigration came to the office and they took him from there.
Okay.
Again, you can imagine my state of mind.
Yeah.
You know, I had a business to run, daughter, brand new.
What type of business did you have?
We had clothing, wholesale and retail.
Okay.
Beautiful stuff, beautiful store.
In New York?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And, you know, we were successful. You know, we built it over the years. We had amazing customers and it was really hard.
That's devastating because that's a whole life that you needed to leave behind for love.
Yeah. And mind you, at this point, I had already been in the military. I was actually accepted also into the U.S. Marshals for a bit.
Wow.
And I declined, you know, just the point that I made it. I was like, oh, yeah. I was picked out of my school. They interviewed us. And so all these things I left because I believed in our business. We were having a wonderful time working together and it just worked.
And you had a baby. You were a family.
He was my husband. It was, you know, we had a family and, you know, and that's, you know, so that day, it was just one of the worst days. It's just, you know, when you get news that is just so devastating, it feels like a moment just freezes and like the clouds, like in the movies, you know, like this darkness comes over you and you're like, oh my God.
That's a difficult time because you have a baby, it's your family. It's a very, very dark time. So how long after that happened with your husband did it take for you to say, okay, I'm leaving the United States and I'm going to go move with him to the Middle East?
Well, at that point, we had already discussed if something happens. So we had already been putting money towards in his country to build a house because either way, our dream and my dream too was to go back to his country. I love adventure. So I'm like, hey, let's go to Africa. Why not? You know, let's go live there. And, you know, and...
So you had already visited the country?
No, we never visited because remember, he can't travel. He wasn't able to travel. So this whole time, you know, our traveling meant going to Florida. Wow, that was like an exotic place to go. Or New Jersey. So we weren't able to travel because he had no papers. All these years, mind you, 7 years later, this is just tons of fighting back and forth. Yes, no, you're going to get your papers. No, you're going to get papers. So it's back and forth. So now it got to the point that, there is no more back and forth. He's in jail. He's in immigration. He has an order of deportation and that's it. It's done for. There's no more fighting. So I said, you know what? Okay. So I just had to gear up and take care of the store at the same time, because at the same time, I didn't want people to know what was happening because I was afraid that they would come and rob me. You know, this is, you know, it's hard to understand the dynamic of the Islamic community within themselves, the way they are sometimes. So if he owed money or somebody owed money, and I was just afraid, not just for the safety of my store that we had already been robbed a couple of years before. So again, I just wanted to keep everything quiet because it's also, you feel shamed, you feel guilty. So I just wanted to keep quiet. So thank God I had my mom at the moment. I had my sister, I call her like my sister, told her, you need to come here. You need to help me. And it was just a matter of time. And I wanted the time to be short. So I started just packing up everything. I don't know how, God's grace, I packed up everything in a container and shipped it out. And I managed to somehow maneuver myself with the ambassador. Well, not ambassador. He was a representative of his country and helped us to be on that plane with him when he was getting deported.
Oh, wow.
Wow. So you actually went with him from day one.
Yes. So
I didn't know that.
So fast forward a month later.
Yeah.
So
that was fast, Rebecca. Wow.
You know, when you know, again, I just, you know, sometimes God works with you. It's like, let's make this happen now. You know, yes, because, you know, I was fortunate in that sense, but there's so many families out there that this is dragged out for months. And the meanwhile it's a nightmare. It's an everyday nightmare because you don't know what's happening in that facility. Is he eating? What's going to happen the next day? So it's a constant nightmare.
Yeah.
And I just wanted it to be short. I said, you know what?
Yeah.
The hell with this. You know, the America is, you know, right now being to me, you know, it is what it is. You think that way. You justify it. It's being unfair. You know, we have a business. We're making money, and it's just not. Yeah. So Okay, no problem.
I have to ask you this question, and I hope you're not
Sure.
offended by it, but I need to be authentic with the way that I also think as well. But did you do any research whatsoever about legal rights for women in the country that you were about to move into? Did you know what the legal rights were for women?
I didn't know.
Okay.
You know, again, it's a little bit of arrogance sometimes. You know, yeah, I'm an American. I'm going to go there and nothing's going to happen to me.
Right.
You know, that's the first thing.
Yeah.
Second, people had warned me. You know, I had a friend that had sort of an interaction with an ex that was from some country in the Middle East.
Okay.
And again, you know, Rebecca, be careful with things. And, you know, these people, I say, no. And I never believed it. I say, no, we've spoken about this. If things don't work out, which I know it's going to work out, you know, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. And besides, I'm an American. My daughter's an American. We can get out from wherever. Nothing's going to happen to us. So that's the mentality.
But you met his family while you were with him. Did they ever make you feel a certain way? Because I'm sure you built a relationship with his parents, or
Yes. Well,
did they ever make you feel a certain way?
Honestly,
Nothing that sparked a
A red flag?
yeah.
honestly, never.
No.
To be honest with you, because remember, we're in the U.S., so they would come over randomly here and there. And the times that I had his
They were
family,
on your turf.
They were on my
Right.
turf. There you go. So it was different.
Yeah.
And I really didn't feel anything. I just felt love, and I felt a lot of appreciation because, you know, his parents were so grateful.
Nice.
From the beginning, they would say I was his angel. So they were so grateful.
There was a lot of love.
Okay.
A lot of love. But again, on my territory.
Right.
I'm not on their territory. So it's a
Right.
big difference. But, you know, again, at that moment, I didn't know. I had no clue.
How old were you around this time?
I think it was around 20. I was like 25.
So you were a young woman. Yeah.
Yeah, I was young. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was young, and and you just go along. You say, I'm in this. I've gone this far, and I'm not going to give up. So I've always been that way. When I start something, I finish it. I don't give up. I'm not a quitter.
Well, you're a Marine. So.
Yes, well, that's another thing. Yeah. So and I've always been taught that way. A big example in my life is my mom. She was always such a strong woman. Never wanted to give up, and always kept going. And now it's had that in me.
So when you arrived to this country, tell us what happened from that moment on.
From that moment on, obviously, when anybody's deported to another country, there's some procedures. So when we got there, well, first of all, we sat in the plane, which was amazing. I don't know how that happened, but we made it happen. And we sat all together. I remember handing my daughter over to him, and it was just like life came back to him. And my mom was with me too.
Wow, your mom went with you.
I dragged her with me. My mom. I'm in. I'm in.
She was a trooper.
She was a trooper. She
What
was
did
amazing.
your other family members think about your decision to go? Did you have support?
Not really. Again, my mom and me were just really isolated sometimes in New York. So a lot of our extended family, they're all over the place.
Right.
My mom has such a huge family. Yeah. And a lot of other family didn't really know because I didn't really interact with them.
Okay.
So, my friends were very hesitant. We support you, we love you, but we just don't. Have you ever seen this movie? Again, the movie.
Not Without My Daughter with Sally Fields.
Yes.
Highly recommended.
Yes.
That movie impacted me as a 15-year-old. And then I saw it again as an older woman, and it still made me feel the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I still have not seen it. I know.
You have to watch it.
I know people tell me, and they mentioned that before I was leaving, you need to see it. I was like, no, I don't want to see it. And sometimes, again, you're so blinded sometimes. You're like, I don't want to see these things, because, it might change my mind. And I'm like, I don't need to see it. It's not going to happen to me.
But Rebecca, don't feel alone. A lot of people do that. They don't want to ask the hard questions or things because they don't want to be deterred from what they want to do.
Yes,
so you're not alone.
And especially being so young. You were young.
Yeah. And us women tend to just justify things, say, no, he's like this. So I'm justifying that he's an amazing man. He's the first one to put the Christmas lights. So he's not going to do this to me. He is not that man. So, again.
So he was putting up Christmas trees.
Oh, he sat in church with Mama.
He shared in some of your traditions.
Like a Catholic church?
Yes.
Wow.
Okay. In America, he was an amazing man. The depth of him.
He was accepting of the things that you believed in. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, and that's why, it was so, we interchange cultures, religion, and it was a beautiful thing. To me, it was just like, oh, wow, I've never had this, and it was exciting. And I'm very open-minded, because after all religions come from the core of love, of peace. And even though throughout the years, maybe it was, sort of directed in different ways, but still, so we shared that, and I shared his religion, and I even fasted during Ramadan sometimes. So it was a beautiful thing in America. But when you go to another country, of that religion and that culture, it's different. It's not celebrated the same.
So let's get into that. Now, when you are in this country, did you already immediately have a home set up, or did you move in with his family?
Unfortunately, it was set up through his family that they were supposed to have, because we got there in the summer. Again, we managed to get there in the summer, and we were just going to go straight to the beach and just relax for a bit. The beach is such a therapy. Somehow, I don't know what happened. We ended up in this dusty old beach house, not what we wanted. Very different. So we stayed there until our house was built, because we were sending money to build a house. So, to have a home, just to have as backup. But somehow it wasn't constructed, because the person that we trusted stole the money. Stole the money. So,
how much money are we talking about?
We're talking
here?
about thousands of dollars. So fortunately, we had there was a building that we had already invested where his parents
I would have been
lived.
devastated.
Oh my
That was already the first red flag, girl.
I was just like, wow. I was like, what? Are you serious right now? I was like, I can't. And so we had no home. The house was there. The lot was there. The structure of the house was there. Oh, the pool was built. Oh, that was great.
Oh, thanks.
But okay, thanks for the pool. But where the hell are we going to live?
Yeah.
So they had stolen the toilet. They had stolen so many things. It was just insane.
Yeah.
The house is there was beautiful, but it wasn't built. So we had to stay in this beach house for a little bit until everything got fixed, which would take months. So we ended up renting an apartment. Of course, at that point, we had saved up money. I had carried everything over. And, we rented an apartment, started life. And I said, well, you know what? Because remember, at this point, we were waiting for the container with the merchandise from our store in New York that I had packed up.
So were you thinking about opening up a store in that country?
Yes, ma'am.
Got it.
Of course.
Okay.
There was
That's a lot. Wow.
Oh, yes. And I said, no, we cannot take all this merchandise and just leave it. So, it was our livelihood. So that's exactly what we did. We brought it over. Well, I brought it over. I brought it over. I packed up everything, packed up a house, packed up a store, packed it all up, including my mom, my daughter, and we left there. And what happened is that we ended up finding a place, and we opened a small store, just how we had started years ago in New York, small room with our brands, with our stuff. And we opened it, and, it was a big hit. People loved us. Again, he had connections. He knew a lot of people in the government, friends. So a lot of people came over, and they trusted our brands. They trusted what we bought. And it worked out. It was great.
So how long, give us a time frame here of how long you were already there. Was it a year, 6 months?
Okay, so at this point, it was a couple of months. It was maybe 2-3 months. So we got there in the summer.
Everything's moving quickly.
Oh, it has to. You cannot stand still, because, here's a different country. I can't work. I'm just arriving. He's just arriving. So we need to secure ourselves. So we right away looked for the space to put our merchandise and open a store, just at least to get going until we see what was going to happen. And we opened, we started selling. But before you knew it, people loved our stuff. So we needed more merchandise. So at that point, I said, I think we need to start bringing merchandise, because how are we going to sell? So that's what happened. I started then traveling back and forth, started buying some overstock merchandise from New York, packing containers and, bringing them over to the country. And, it worked out well for a while until, things started changing with him.
How long were you there that things were good and everything was normal before things changed? How long was that process?
Well, initially, things weren't great from the beginning. I mean, I'm not talking about between me and him. It was just the country itself.
Right.
The mentality, again, arriving that they're already stolen from us, just arriving. You already stole from me? I just got here. So I would say maybe a year and a half into it. Along the way, I saw a lot of things. I've had people actually, let me rephrase that, men say, I don't do business with women. I said, okay, no problem. So, already those things were accumulating. Those were little issues, but he would always defend me in the beginning. But then after a year and a half, I would say, getting into 2 years, I saw him change.
It was like a switch.
Yes. So, I remember one client saying, I don't do business with women. And he goes, okay, well, then you're not doing business with us.
Okay.
That's my wife. And she's the boss. There's the door. And he defended me in the beginning. But then it started, men started saying, some of them just blatantly say, I'm not doing business with women. I don't want her giving me the prices. I want to deal with you. Then he started coming more to the store and seeing things and just, pushing me to the side. And men tend to go through a transition, I think, sometimes when, our friends start influencing, having that influence on how they think. I started coming less to the store. He started being more at the store. So little changes like that.
I want to ask you about the women in the country that you were at. How were they with you? Because they knew that you were American, you were young, you had a baby, you were kind of like an entrepreneur in their land, and they were maybe not used to seeing that. So did you feel like the women in that country were supportive to you and were like, wow, she's great, or they were angry at you?
I think they were more angry, jealous, conniving. I could say out of the experience, I only got to really build on one friendship.
Wow.
Only one.
That's sad.
Everybody else was just horrible, in the sense, such hypocrites. The women, it's sad to say, they don't have a lot. And they don't have a lot of opportunity. So if they see a woman that does, it's just like, they hated you from the beginning. And this was within his family. Within his family too. I mean, I just saw the looks. The looks that, they see you have a nice watch, you have a nice bag, and like, and that mentality is like, why you have it and I don't. I'm going to try to destroy it. And that's exactly.
And Rebecca, what did you look like? Did you have your hair loose, or did you cover yourself, or were you westernized there?
Westernized. Nobody changing me. I had my Nike, my Air Max, and
that could have been part of it too.
So it was okay.
It was okay. I mean, I wasn't.
It was okay to just dress how you wanted.
Oh, yes.
In that country.
Well, no, to a certain point. Like I couldn't be very revealing. Of course, like here, in the U.S., I would wear my tank tops and
shorts.
Also, you go according to your body type too. But again, also at that moment, remember I had the baby, so I had a little baby fat, so I was a little self-conscious. So I didn't mind wearing the big T-shirts and things like that. I didn't have to wear a veil. So, so that, and I wouldn't wear it because, again, we had that understanding.
Now, the women around you, were they covered up? Were they like always covered up? No. A
lot of them were. Again, it's a choice. And a lot of them did not wear the veil. Again, it depends on the country.
Right.
So at least this country is sort of very liberal in that sense. Okay. So a lot of women, they don't wear it. I just see some women dress normally, So this is out of all the Islamic countries that I've known, this is very liberal.
So it's personal choice
Exactly. Okay. It's a personal choice. Also, it's a family choice because some families do make the women wear that.
Right.
At least around me, no, they didn't.
Okay, so now your husband is taking more charge at the store, and you're, I'm assuming, home with the baby more.
Yes.
It's about a year and a half deep in. Let's get into the shift in your marriage.
So the shift came when, these little things, you know your husband, and you start seeing things that he is bothered by you. So if I caressed him, he would move, just things that change in a man, and as a woman, you said, I would call him. He wouldn't pick up the phone. I said, well, where were you? So these kind of hints, I think us women, and I'm sure anybody out there listening has gone through this, and you see this change, like all of a sudden you seem to be fat or you seem to be ugly to him. He never said it, but you could just see it in his face. So one time, this client of mine, remember, nobody spoke a lot of English there. So I had a customer, yes. She came to me and she said, I need to speak to you. And I said, well, what happened? She goes, I just need to speak to you. So a lot of women, like I said, would be conniving. They tried to be my friend through being customers. They were buying my merchandise and things like that, but, trying to be my friend. So this, this lady, she spoke English and I trusted her. So I sat down with her and she told me that my husband had been living a double life with another woman. And that if I wasn't careful, this woman wanted to take everything from me. And on top of that, I know this might sound weird, and to some of your listeners, it's like, what? That she practiced witchcraft.
Hold up, wait a minute. Whoa, wait. I have a question. Why would this woman, out of the kindness of her heart, come and do this? Like, there had to be a reason she did this too.
Well, it was heard through the grapevine that she had heard a story of how delusional and blind I was, that this woman that was destroying my marriage, was having an affair with my husband, had slept with me in my bed and I didn't even know. I didn't know who she was. So when she heard, here said that she said that this woman had come into my home, slept with me. Well, not slept with me, but in the sense, like, I had shared my bed because I had felt bad. I didn't know who she was. It's I know this sounds crazy. People may be like, what?
No, it's fascinating.
So, so then she heard the story through another woman that was her friend. And she said, you know what? Because this woman was in a sense to say a woman, a working girl.
Oh.
Yes. So there is supposedly an ethical code. I didn't know about this. That you can do whatever with the husband, but you do not mess with the family. You do not mess with the wife. You do not go into their home. You do not go and mess with their children. And for some reason, the other girl was like, this is ethical codes that we have. We just don't do. You could do whatever with the husband. They're married. That's there. But you don't mess with the wife. And they felt bad for me. So I don't know how these conversations came to this customer of mine. And that's why she felt the need to tell me.
Oh my God.
And she came and we sat in that coffee shop again. You just feel the nerves. I'm like, this is not good what she's going to tell me. And then when she said this woman, she wrote the name. I remember her giving the name to me in a piece of paper. And she goes, this woman is doing tons of things to destroy your marriage. She wants to take everything you have, including your daughter.
Oh.
And I say, what? And it's just like that cloud, the cloud of gloom, like in the movies. It's like this looming black cloud just comes over me in the sadness. And
Rebecca, did she tell you that she practiced witchcraft?
Yes.
The lady.
Yes. She said, and again, this country is very keen on witch. It's like a secondary religion to them because they really believe in it. And you hear these stories. I mean, one of the key things they told me when I first arrived, they said two things: don't trust anybody and don't eat food from anybody. And I was
Really?
I was like, why? They cook that bad? Which they don't.
Right.
The food is amazing. But I was like, what? And yes, that's how much they have that in them, that you cannot just drink or eat from anybody because you don't know what they put in the food. So the witchcraft there is a big thing.
Meanwhile, I just brought a whole tray of pastelito.
No, but I trust you. I trust you. It's very different. The mentality they have, and this is, I'm talking about decades of just culture,
right?
Wisdom. Don't eat from anybody. Why is that water dark? Don't leave your underwear here. Don't leave your hairbrush. Always clean your hairbrush. Don't leave hair there. Don't leave your, if you're that time of the month, don't leave that there because that's your blood, and just crazy things.
Wow.
And I never thought, and I'm like, okay, like Santeria, it's something that's very embedded in your culture.
Santeria. Yeah.
Very embedded. And they live with that every day. And that's how they operate. And this girl told me, she goes, she is one of these people that has done a lot of things. And then I started thinking, I'm like, And a lot of the things that it's said that, when you're experiencing this and they're doing it to you, you do feel it. And I know this is like a crazy notion. People will be like, what? You do feel it. I was starting to have nightmares. He was having nightmares. He would see people at nighttime. He would wake up and scare the hell out of me. I started losing my hair. I started going crazy. Like, I didn't know. I was losing my mojo. Hey, I'm a New York Latina Marine. I was, and I was just losing my strength. I felt weak. I felt, he started seeing me as this ugly American Catholic infidel. The people that are not from the religion, they call them infidel. So everything was switching. this, I know he loved me in his, at the moment, I always knew he loved me. But then all of a sudden I was doubting that. He did not see me the same way. It was just so different. And then I looked at this girl when she had me this paper. She gave me her name, her number. And I'm like, I said, are you serious? And I didn't want to believe it. She goes, yes. She has been living. She has an apartment. I was just like shocked.
My God, that was so fast because you've only been there a year and change.
Yeah, at this point, I was 2 years. This was 2 years in. So
Okay,
she was
2
saying,
years.
yes, she's been. So no, but supposedly at that point, it had been happening for a couple of months.
Okay.
But somehow she had, I don't know, gotten into his head. The cockroaches started crawling in and he had changed. And I had seen that change, but I didn't want to believe that it was a change because of another woman. And I never thought that he would do that to me.
Right.
I really, you're so in love. We've been through so much. And we used to say we've been through war together. And we've always stood side by side. I never thought that he would do that.
So, Rebecca, this is a personal question. You don't have to answer, but was the intimacy with your husband at this point non-existent in regards to,
Yeah, it was dwindling.
It was
but then again, you said it's marriage. I had a baby, we had been going through so much stress. I was traveling back and forth. Remember, I was traveling back and forth, bringing merchandise, so our store can always have new stuff. And,
And when you traveled, you left the baby.
Yes, the baby was left with my mom most of the time. With him, I mean, he loves his daughter.
How long would you be away at a time when you did?
The most I would stay would be 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah, because between 3 weeks to buy merchandise, pack it up, send off the container. So it was a lot of process, but and it felt long because
But actually, that's not too long for what you were doing.
Right.
You did it very quickly.
Yes, but the whole problem is my daughter.
Yeah, of
when
course.
I would leave and then I would come back and I would see her. I'm like, oh my God, I would just get
Yeah,
emotional.
2-3 weeks feels like months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, I'm taking time away from my daughter. Thank God I had my mom at that moment there. So she would take care of my daughter, who best babysitter in the world. And at the time I was like, oh my God, I'm taking, but again, you're thinking, okay, this is for our future. This is for our business. This is for my daughter, so I don't mind taking 2-3 weeks, but this is an investment for us. This is our thing. So when this lady came with this little piece of paper and telling me these things, it's just, no, it cannot be.
Yeah, that's devastating. You uproot everything. Your
whole
all this
life.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like something inside. It's like, imagine, if you will, a building and it just,
Yeah.
that's how you feel inside.
So this little piece of paper had her name, all her information. What the hell did you do after that?
I just looked at her. I was like, no, what are you talking about? I remember I'm in a country. I don't know the language. I don't have friends.
You're still adjusting.
I'm still adjusting.
Yeah.
People are not accepting. It's not like I could go to his family and say, hey, look at this name. Can you call her? And, because his family, they're always going to side with him.
Right.
So I had no friends. My mom was my only point of contact. Women tell her, she'll probably say, oh, it's just, it's lies, because my mom loved him. She just adored him. And so I was just so stuck and alone. And I said, well, you need to help me. I want to speak to this woman. I want to go where she's at. I want to see this apartment. I want to see this. I want to catch him right away inside. Then, at first you're shocked because you're frozen. Again, that cloud over, it's like, whoa. And you pick yourself up. Okay, what do I need to do? Either I confront him, he might just say yes, or he might, and then I say, you know what? I'm not going to go look for nobody. First of all, at that point, sadly to say, I didn't drive. I know it's embarrassing.
No, it's not.
I didn't drive.
It's a different country too.
But you know what? Maybe that's God's way of protecting you, because I think, and I always think to this day, if I knew, well, back then, if I would have driven,
You would have ran her over.
yeah. I swear, I you go through these fantasies, once I actually confirmed that it was true, because at the moment you don't know if it's true. So once I confirmed, yes, I said, you know what?
But how did you confirm it was true?
So that's the thing. So there was a guy that was working in our store. There was an assistant, and he was a great comfort to me because he really related. He was very westernized, he was very hip hop, very New Yorker, but he was a New Yorker from there. And he spoke English. So I don't know why I confided in him. And I said, because when I came back from the coffee, I had to go to work that day. So when I got there, my face was just, I wasn't sure. I didn't know. And I told him, and he just looked at me and I said, do you know something? Because remember, this guy was he was a salesperson. He was the delivery guy. He did everything. He was the right hand man of my ex. And he just looked at me. I was like, please, I know he's your boss, but what, can you help me? And he just looked at me. He goes, okay, you want me to help you? I was like, please, I need to find out. This is insane. I want to know if this is the truth, because I don't want to just go up to him and say, hey, is this true? And if he says no, then I'm back to square one because I have no proof. He can say, I don't know what she's talking about.
Okay.
But eventually I did confront him, and he confessed. Yeah. My ex confessed. But at the same time, I was doing my own investigation. I had the other guy try to see if he can follow her, find her, and because I really wanted to go and confront her and have somebody to translate again.
Yeah.
Because,
Did you get to do that?
No.
Okay.
You know why? Because God is good.
Yeah,
God is protecting me. Because I think at that moment, with the rage I had inside of me, when my ex actually confessed yes. But, the way he made it sound was that he had made a mistake. That he he was sorry. I was like, but you make a mistake for one night. You don't make it for months.
Over and over.
I said, this doesn't make sense.
Right.
And again.
You got her an apartment.
Yes.
And you were already starting to see changes in him.
Yes. Right. Yes. With me. And I said, how could you do this to me? I gave my life up for you, my career,
You sure did.
my country. How could you do this to me? And then again, as a woman, what does she look like? Who is she? And in a sense, I don't know if I could say that she's a hooker. How could you do that to me and pick me? I'm a Marine, and she's a woman from the street. She cannot even compare. I'm not blown. I don't want to get a big head here and say, oh, I'm, Mr. But still, everything I've been through with you, what I've done for you, who I am.
Right.
And the beautiful daughter I've given you, how could you do this to me?
And let's keep it real. If she was a lady of the streets, he could potentially also, when he's with you, give you a sexually transmitted disease and put your life at risk. Right. So let's keep it real.
Yes.
To me, that's like an even bigger betrayal.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's not just emotional, it's just physical.
Physical. He could have really hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, after that, obviously.
Yeah.
I didn't want him to touch me. I just wanted to stay away from him because I was just, how could you do this to me? So it's so weird because in the moment, a lifetime, well, not a lifetime, but years of just love and adoration and just loyalty, just wham, out the window.
So now let's talk about when you started to make the decision that you wanted to leave the marriage.
So I saw that. So let's backtrack a little bit. So I'm going to say my part because I think it's necessary. And when you're so emotionally drained, and at that point, my self-esteem was on the floor, was just on the floor. Again, I know it's, how can I say, it's really bad to concentrate. Oh, she's this. And, but at that moment I did. I don't know why. And also I think, again, I think she was doing things to me. Pretty sure she was. I was not myself. I was so weak. And the only person that was there at that moment was the right-hand man. Okay. And I always saw him look at me in a way, like admiring me. And so it started coming out because he started getting mad at me. So I remember I had told him, please find out. He was a guy, he knew people in the street, and we had a conversation. He said, I don't understand why he would do this to you. You're an amazing woman, everything you've done for him. So we started having these conversations. And I said, and all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, look at this guy. He's younger than me. He's so nice. He's a great guy. And look at how he's looking at me. He's looking at me the way my husband should be looking at me. But he's telling me these things. So I started getting closer to him. And I guess it's because, again, you're
vulnerable.
Yeah. Very. I was so dead inside, because I was stuck in a situation I didn't know how to get out of. I had my daughter, I had my house, I had my business, and I also didn't want to just give it away. So this woman came in. I just didn't want. So we started getting closer. We got to, we didn't get together in any sense physically, just to make it known. But we started talking and just talking about what was happening, and I don't know. It just became something more closer, and I started confiding in him, and I guess I needed that. Like you said, I was vulnerable.
It was like an emotional relationship.
It was.
Okay.
He was my angel. And I thank him because he really stopped me from going to her house. He actually got me the address of where she was living. Everything. He got me information, from the street. Yeah. But he said, I got you this because you asked me, but don't do anything. Think about your daughter. Mm-hmm. You're so worth. Your worth is just so much more than for you to go put your hands on her. Don't do that. And I sort of listened. So I sort of calmed down. So I said, you know what? I don't care. Let it be. And I said, either way, I'm going to try to work, try to get things, save money, and eventually I'm going to leave. So I started telling my ex, I said, I want to go back to America. I don't want to be here. This is not working clearly with me and you. Because, even though he had confessed, he had apologized, he said, I'm sorry, you'll never, but it was, I don't know, there was something else. I knew she wasn't gone, and I wanted to find out because I felt he was lying. So he said she was gone, but I knew she wasn't gone. And eventually I did find out she was not gone because my friend had managed to get me, connections in the sense to get photos. And I eventually got a photo of him and her eating. Mm-hmm. So there you go. It was not over. You were lying to me the whole time. And you continued to lie. So I knew. And I told him, I this is not working. And he goes, well, you could go, but my daughter's not leaving. And that's
where the saga begins.
Oh.
Wow.
So at this point, remember, so once she made herself known, and I think sometimes when a lot of people say, if you really look at this, that girl that gave you that little piece of paper, I think she was sent by her. So a lot of people say
really?
that.
Yeah, I could see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She wanted to know.
To stir the pot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if she wants what you have, absolutely.
Yeah. So, so
I never
They're
thought of
evil.
that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I never thought of that.
I think
I actually was like, oh, maybe she's looking out for her. But you're right.
Actually, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Right.
You're right. It does.
So remember, at this point, we had gone out one night. Let's backtrack a little bit. So I think maybe that's the night that she said, I'm gonna take it all. So we had gone out to a club. His friend was already cheating on his wife with a girl from the street, and that girl happened to be her friend. I had no idea. So we went to the club. They came out. Oh, she's the friend of his friend's girlfriend. Those type of things. We all sat drinking. And at the end of the night, she starts crying. And she accuses some guy of touching and molesting her.
Oh, great.
So me and my husband, my ex, are outside. And I'm like, oh my God, that's horrible. And her friend just left her here. And she's there crying. Look at the evil of this woman. And she's pretending that she just got molested, and and I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, God, for them it's a big deal, they're virgins, all these things you're thinking. I'm like, God, little did I know. But so I'm like, oh my God, we can't just leave her here. So he's like, no. He's like, well, that's her problem. Let's go. Now I'm looking at him like, you can't just leave this woman here in the street. It's like 5:00 in the morning. She just got molested. She's crying, and I took her with me.
Wow.
I didn't know who she was. I took her with me and I took her to my house and I said, well, here's a pajama. You could stay. And then tomorrow my chauffeur, because, I had a driver, he could take you home. And I'm so sorry about what happened to her.
Oh, wow.
And I brought her to sleep because at that point, my daughter had her room, my mom, so we didn't have space. He just grabbed his stuff. He went to the living room. And he goes, no, you guys stay there. And then he just like, I'm now think back and I'm like, At that moment, you're not thinking that. I was like, okay, you know what? Just relax. Here's a pajama. You could, just sleep with me. And she slept with me in my bed. I had no idea. Literally sleeping with the enemy. I know.
Wow.
And you say, how can you be so despicable? Because that's just being despicable. And yeah, but this is the... And then again, it's like a punch in the face. How could you prefer somebody that would do this?
Right.
In your home?
That's really deep. That's really deep.
How could you choose that kind of person over me? So again, it just reaffirmed I needed to get out of here. So, okay. So now fast forward. Now, obviously this woman comes, tells me these things, and now it's known. So she starts sending messages. La ha ha ha. I'm going to take everything you have. Yeah. So she started bullying me in a sense. Now she made it known that, so the war began. At that moment, he started, so then he had taken my phone at one point, and he found messages between me and the worker. Messages, I love to see you smile. Things very innocent, because again, we didn't have any physical contact. We were just working together, but we never went out. We never did anything. And like you said, emotional. And he was such an emotional support, because again, he was guiding me. He said, I know you know where she lives. No, I'm not going to get you anybody to go there. You're not going to do these things. You have to relax and think about your daughter. So
he was there for you.
Yes, he was. He was emotionally there for me. And I'm very grateful for that. And I hope he's in a good place right now, because I could never thank him enough for what the emotional support he gave me. So anyway, so now we were at war.
And he's telling you, you could leave, but you're leaving our daughter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, and I said, oh no.
Those are fighting words.
Yeah.
No. I said,
How old is your daughter around this time frame?
Oh, she's like 4.
Okay. All right.
Baby, yeah. I mean, she was my baby. He said, no, you're not taking my daughter. I'm not. I said, no. And I started refreshing his memory. I said, no, remember when you were there, you said, this didn't work out. I can always take my baby and come back. Right. We're Americans. I'm not staying here. You thought, no, you are not taking my daughter. Do whatever you want. I don't care.
It's exactly like the movie. That part of the movie, yep.
Yeah. And I said again the phrase, not without my daughter, I'm leaving here. Because at one point, obviously when the war broke out, he found messages, just to give you a heads up. So he had taken my phone at one point before everything really started. And he said, what are these messages? And he found the messages between me and the sales guy, and that was it. He used that as the excuse in a way to say, look what you've done to me. Oh my God.
Because he's still lying about what's going on.
But in those countries, if a woman commits adultery, it's very different. Right. Am I correct in stating that?
Yes. Yeah. But it wasn't even adultery.
I know, but what I'm saying
is he's accusing you.
The accusation alone could be dangerous for you.
Let me tell you something. They crucified me. Because not only did he use this as leverage for him to he told his whole family.
Right.
The family looked at me like I was the worst of the worst. How could you do that with that man? And this, I said, wait, hold the phone. He has been living a double life with a hooker. And you are accusing me when I've never done anything. This is just an emotional person that's in my life. When he's throwing me out like a shoe, treating me like crap. Are you serious? But again, there's nothing worse than not being able to be understood. It's a language. I did not know it. I felt like a caveman at points. I was drawing figures and trying to do hand signs to express to them. No, mean. It was so horrible. And to see his mom and dad look at me like with this face of disgust when they used to look at me with such love. I was the angel that got their son out. Now all of a sudden, I'm the worst of the worst. I'm an infidel. I'm cheating on... And I'm like, wait a minute. No. He's the one that messed up everything from the beginning.
Yeah, but that's their son.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And that's their brother. And then, and again, it was...
And you're in their turf.
And then you're in their turf.
Exactly. So that's after the messages. That's when World War III broke out. He said, you get the hell out. How shame on you. I was like, shame on me. Shame on you. You broke everything. You destroyed everything by picking something from the trash. You picked up trash. That's what you did. And you destroyed our family. And that's exactly when he offered me money. And that's when the line came out. He goes, okay, you know what? Just take. I'll give you the money that's in the vault. I'll give you money and you just take it and you just get the hell out. But she's staying with me. I said, I am not leaving without my daughter. Ironically, that line from that movie.
Yeah.
Again, here is a Hispanic New York girl saying this in a foreign country. Imagine. Nobody would have think that. I never thought myself I would be saying that. And I remember thinking about the movie and people saying, hey, don't let that be. I'm like, no. Oh, yeah. here I am. Here I am. Now it's me. And I said, not without my daughter. I am not leaving this country without my daughter. Absolutely not.
So you ended up getting separated from him, and
No.
what do you do?
I went to a lawyer. The lawyer said, because you're a woman, you can just divorce your husband. You can, but you leave with nothing. I said, what do you mean I leave with nothing? He cheated on me. He committed adultery. He goes, yeah, but it's very difficult. Here it's different. And, here women are looked down on if you are leaving your husband. I was like, but I mean, he look what he's done to me. He takes my daughter for a day or two. Again, at this point, I wasn't working. He took the keys from me. He took my business from me. He would take my daughter at times, a day or two. I wouldn't know where she was. I mean, again, I had no car. He took away the chauffeur. So it was just, he was in control of
I mean, this is exactly why it's important for anybody listening that you need to know the legal rights for women in whatever country you're going to.
Yeah. Right. Oh, and make sure you have a driver's license. I think, again, if I would have driven in those days. I
But
think
you were alone too, because you didn't really have besides that one man, you didn't have a support system.
Nothing.
And her mom.
Zero.
And your mom always going to be by your side.
Yeah.
My mom at that point, she was getting sick, seeing the fights. There was some intense fights. Again, when I talk
Was she there with you?
She was there for a couple of, because my mom would come back and forth. Because remember, you can't overstay 3 months. So she would come back and forth.
Okay.
So during this fighting, I just got to the point that I said, I didn't want my mom there.
Okay.
She was suffering a lot. She was crying all the time.
You don't want her to see that.
No. It was a really bad situation. So it got to the point I said, Mom, you need, and I remember my mom looking at me and she was just crying. She goes, I don't want to leave you. I am so afraid of leaving you here.
Pobrecita.
This is not him. This is not him. And I think what broke the camel's back was one night, there was not a party. It's like a blessing of a house. They have blessings come in. And again, I know this is going to sound really crazy. It's like a movie in a sense with the possessions of people. They were saying the Quran. They recite the Quran to bless the house. So his family was there. Everybody was there. My daughter and my mom were on the bed and they were coloring. And my daughter was like 4, she was big. They were coloring. My mom always colored with her. So we weren't in my bedroom. I didn't want to be near his family. Because remember, I was crucified. I was the bad wife. I had an affair and illicit and this and that. I was the terrible wife. So for some reason, they got up the idea to just try to bless the house and bless or whatever. Okay, whatever. So they bring this priest there, what they call an imam, to bless. So me and my mom were just away from everybody. And he comes in, literally, into the room. I have never seen possession in my life unless it was in a movie. His eyes were literally red. And he comes in screaming, storming, say, get out of my room, to my mom. And I was like, what the hell's wrong with you? He goes, you're doing witchcraft on me. You're doing things to me. It's you. And he's screaming on my mom. I mean, mind you, he was always so loving with my mom. And my mom is looking at him like,
scared.
Yeah, and my daughter's crying. She's, like, what is happening? And I said, what's the matter with you? And he was possessed. And at the same, it was just like I tell you, a movie. At the same time in the background, I heard the Quran being read. And he's here possessed. His eyes were red. And I'm like, you need to calm down. Say, you put a hand on my mom. I swear to God, we'd kill each other here. So that's the only thing. It almost got physical. And he goes, get out. And he was just screaming at her, get out, get out. And my mom said, don't worry. I get out. And then she turned and she said, I forgive you. I forgive you. I know it's not you. And it was painful because I said, it's not just me. It's not just my pain. It's also my mom's pain and and my daughter's pain, because I had never seen him in that sense so possessed. And again, and I'm like, why is this happening? So my mom got up. She goes, I forgive you. I know it's not you. I don't know what they've done to you, but it's not you. And she went to her room and I took my daughter and I just ran to her room and we just locked ourselves in there. And then we just closed the room and he just stood there like lost because he didn't know what's happened. And I just left and we were in the room and we were just crying together. And she goes, how could you ask me to leave? I can't leave. I said, Ma, you have to leave. She goes, no, I'm not leaving. I said, you have to leave. You can't stay here. You're just making it worse, because if I just have to worry about myself,
right,
I can handle it. And I know he would never hurt his daughter. That I know for a fact. I can't take care of you and me, because I cannot stand it. If I'm outside and he comes and he does something, look what he did tonight. So at that point, I think it was like maybe a couple of weeks later. And ironically, at that same moment, my cousin from New York had reserved to come to the country. And he had said, oh, this was planned ahead. So my cousin, look how God has his timing. He came. I mean, obviously my ex treated him horribly, absolutely horribly, made him feel like crap. And I said, you need to take my mom home. Take her back to New York. I cannot take care of myself and her. And that's exactly what my cousin did. He came. He had a horrible time. I took him for a little bit of touring here and there, and as much as I could, considering. And I said, take my mom back. And my mom didn't want to leave, but he convinced her, and that was a hard goodbye. It was a hard goodbye, and I remember that day she was leaving. I was crying. I was looking at her going, and she's just waving to me because she didn't know when she was going to see me. And I remember my daughter's father coming. He said, open the windows, let all the evil out, and just talking in these things. I said, what are you saying? He goes, that's it, all the evil has left. So he was accusing my mom. So and then when I spoke to some people, they say that's part of the witchcraft, and these things that they do, they make you sort of crazy, thinking that the wrong people, the people that are actually praying and caring for you, are the evil ones.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
So my mom.
And he's influenced. And at this point, he's being influenced by his family.
Yeah.
Everybody. Because now she's...
It's true what she
But
said.
mostly her.
Yeah.
Mostly
I've heard
her.
that. Yeah, because she was probably praying for him.
Yeah.
Praying for you guys as a couple.
Right.
And the demons don't like that.
No, but I mean, I'll never forget his eyes. He was just possessed that night.
Wow.
And at the same time, he's screaming. The Quran, it's being read in the background, and they're burning, like this incense they burn. And it was just like such a contrast. Evil, and then the power, the word of God being said in the background. It was just it was so real.
So, Rebecca, let's get into your strategic plan on getting out of that country with your daughter. Let's talk about how you made that happen.
I tried. I had a very high-ranking person help me. Try to help me. This man I can't disclose, obviously, but he was an amazing person. He tried to help me. I tried to leave from the airport.
He
but
worked in the government?
Oh, yeah. Okay. He is the government.
Okay.
To sort of say. But, just to make it quick, I tried to escape. I was able to change my daughter's passport without him knowing. Okay, remember, he has everything, all the documentation. He threw the passport at me. He said, but he had locked on my daughter's. Somehow I was like, damn it. So he took away the passport. I couldn't. How was I to get out? So he was ensuring that I was not taking my daughter.
But you had your passport, but not your baby's.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Exactly. So what happened is that I said, no. So I went to the embassy. The embassy refused to help me. Again,
They refused to help you.
They refused to help me because they said, well, you came to this country. That's your problem. You came here, and again, as an American, you're like, what do you mean? I'm an American. You have to no.
Oh.
You made the decision to come here. Nobody put a gun to your head.
I thought the U.S. Embassy, I'm sorry for my ignorance, but I thought that was there to help you
navigate those
things.
Well, until you either shot in the head or stabbed, they will not step in.
Wow.
That's, that was my understanding. I said, this man, okay, maybe he has not punched me, but he is verbally and emotionally abusing me. Mm-hmm. And I'm also at the edge of losing my mind. Okay. There's a woman that is a psycho, because there's no other word for her, and evil. And she wants to take away my daughter. She wants to take everything from me. So you need to, no. And, again, I was like, I can't believe this. Wow. But so either way, with that high ranking person that helped me maneuver, was able to take out another passport for my daughter.
Oh, wow.
A brand new passport.
But was it a real passport?
A real American passport.
Oh,
yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So for some God's grace, I still had, I always say, don't throw things away. You never know. Documents might come back and you might need them. So I had a document that had given me power when he was in jail to travel with my daughter.
Oh my God.
And I never throw things away, because you never know. These are powerful documents. So what happens is that I said, you know what? I have a document, because the embassy won't give you without authorization of the other parent, especially if I'm in.
And of the husband, really, right? I mean,
of the other parent, really. Okay. So thank God I had that pay. So that's the only thing that saved me from getting the passport. So I was able to maneuver to get the passport. Fast forward. So, again, all this time I'm praying. I'm in the house. I'm completely lost. There's nothing else to do because I can't work. I can't drive. I have no money. I am complete. He took everything from me. Everything from me. So at this point, I'm just trying to see. I need to get out. Prayers. Having faith. He has a child from a previous marriage, and the child was coming to visit. So the child was still young.
American?
Yes, technically the child is American, but grew up in Europe. So he was going to come and visit, So I said, okay, somehow something's got to come up here. Now remember, we're at war, back and forth. So he decides, he goes, you know what? Let's go to Euro Disney. I said, oh,
He said this?
I said, oh my God. I said, yes, let's go to Euro Disney. Sure. I'm playing the game here.
And where is Euro Disney at?
In France.
In France. Okay.
And I'm like, sure. Because the only thing I'm thinking, I need to get out of Africa. Okay. This beautiful continent, but I need to get out of here. I need to cross that ocean into Europe. That's the only way I'm going to be able to get out of here. Because I really knew at this point, I tried to escape through the airport. I was blocked. He had put a block on my daughter. I had to return myself back, pretend nothing happened. So at that point, I said, it was so devastating. I was completely blocked. So I knew I was not getting my daughter out. There's no way. Didn't matter.
So I'm sorry, but you had already tried to?
I had to try to escape.
I missed that part.
Yeah,
I had already tried to escape, and you were completely blocked at the airport.
Yes, I was completely blocked.
And he knew that you were trying to do this?
Again, by God's graces, he didn't find out.
Girl.
He had called me. We rushed, and it was, the man that had, the man I can't disclose, his agent, an assistant, drove me to the airport, and we drove back so fast before the chauffeur was to pick up my daughter from school.
Holy.
See, remember, everything at this point was being controlled by him. The chauffeur was picking up my daughter. I was not allowed to leave the house. If I left the house, I had to sneak out through the back, pretend I'm going to the supermarket, jump in a taxi. So
you had to play the game. You had to play the game.
Yes, it was playing a game because I didn't want to set him off in any moment to know that I was up to something. Right. I didn't want him to know because I knew that if he knew, that's it. Game over. So at this point, obviously, I had gone to the airport, tried to, with one luggage, packed up my stuff, little what I could, left almost everything behind, and I was blocked. And he said, you can't travel. She can't leave. I said, what do you mean she can't leave? We're Americans. I said, I don't understand. We're Americans. We can leave. Why are you detaining me here? No, because you are where you are and you cannot leave. There's something on your daughter. And until her father doesn't say so, you're not leaving with her. Can we call him? Oh, wow. I was like, no, it's okay. He's working. Okay, but we could still, no, it's okay. And oh my God, we jumped back into the car. We ran out, rushed back, pulled my daughter back in daycare before the chauffeur would come.
But would he be able to take his daughter out?
Of course, he could do whatever he wants.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Again, you're a woman. It doesn't matter. He could take of course, he can go anywhere in the world, but no. So again, that was devastating. That day was just crushing.
That's a lot, Rebecca. Yeah.
It was crushing. My mom was waiting. Everybody's on pins and needles waiting. Okay, did they get out?
Your poor mom. She must have been.
Oh, yeah. I called her and said, Mom, I'm sorry. I couldn't leave. They blocked the baby. She's blocked. And she goes, well, you're not leaving without her. No. And,
No, you can't.
I
wouldn't leave without my daughter.
At this point, I say, even to that crazy psycho, I say, you could take my husband. You could take the store. You could take whatever, but you're not taking my daughter. She's mine. Mm-hmm. You could take everything. You've taken money, whatever. But my daughter is mine. You're not taking her. And at that point, obviously, okay, that was the first defeat. So now, months later, let's fast track. And then he said, okay, let's go to Disney. And in my head, I'm like, yes. Because
where did that come from? I'm sorry. It's just that.
Because the kids were young. And, hey, what's the best place over there in that side of the world to,
the other child was visiting, you said,
exactly.
Right?
So the other child was visiting.
To take,
girl, that was God's divine intervention.
He wanted to take them somewhere.
It is. It is. I mean, there's a lot of moments. That's why, and a lot to you listeners, this is not just, there's many details to the story, but perseverance, the faith, Never give up.
Yeah.
Because I was almost 2 years now into this nightmare.
Yeah.
The nightmare that almost drove me to, suicidal thoughts and everything.
Wow.
Because everything was happening to me. And again, I do believe, firm believer, she was doing a lot of things to me. It's just driving me nuts.
Yeah.
And it was said that she wanted to drive me so crazy that she wanted to put me in a mental hospital, for me to commit something, to put me in jail. So, there was a lot of plots that I heard all through the grapevine.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he says, I said, yes, sure. So I'm thinking
Disney.
And he included you in this trip because could he have left without you?
yes. Oh, he could
have left you there.
Right, but she was playing the game.
Right,
So he
but
trusted you. He still trusted you at this point.
That's what we're saying,
Yes.
divine intervention.
Yeah.
That he actually said, okay, let's all go.
Oh, yes. I was playing very nice. As much as it was killing me inside, I hated him at that moment. I really did.
Yeah.
For your
But you
daughter.
were playing chess, not checkers.
Right.
So it's not, and I said, if that happens, what happens is, because usually what happens is that from Africa, it's easy to drive to Europe. And that's exactly what we used to do all the time. So it's like, okay, cool. This is what I need, because I need to get to Spain, and my family's there. And once I get there, that's it. I'm good. I'm not in a fifth world country, sort of say, no disrespect, but to me it was at that moment. Because I was so stuck. I was being crucified and nobody heard me. So he says, okay, let's do this. And I'm like, okay, this is good. This is good. And I just kept praying that he didn't change his mind. And I was like, God, please. Okay, so finally came the day, and we packed up, and I'm packing up everything as much as I can inside the little bag, because obviously I can't take a big luggage.
Right.
Supposedly we're only going for 2-3 days.
You don't want to make it obvious.
Yeah.
They don't want to make it obvious. So we get to the border, and something blocks us. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, what happened now? And he comes coming, and I see him coming through the rear view mirror. So usually when you come to the border in the car, I stayed with the baby and his son, and he went to the immigration. Usually you give the passport, and he comes, I see him coming through. I'm like, oh my God, my heart was just, and again, I have to play it off, because if he sees something in me, he's going to, okay, this one's up to something.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't want to set him off. So what happens is he goes, did you do something to the passport? Like screaming at me. I said, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. Oh my God. I was like, I should get an Oscar for that. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. What are you saying? You must have done something to the passport. They're saying it's stolen, that it's missing. I'm like, what are you talking about?
The baby's passport.
No, my passport.
Your passport.
Yes, again, God's intervention is because originally the passport that was reported stolen was
the
my daughter's.
baby's.
Because in order for me to get a new passport in the
had to
embassy,
say-
I had to get a police report. And that's exactly what I did.
So that's how he helped her get her daughter a new passport. They reported it stolen. So he
but
got
it
her
was
new passport.
yours that was flagged.
And somehow in the system, but I know because when that process was made, because they told me, the agent at that point that was helping me said, your daughter's passport is going to be put like it was stolen or missing, whatever it is. I said, yeah, do whatever you need to. I don't care. Just do it. But now we're in the immigration, the border, and they say, it's my passport. I don't know how that happened. And I'm inside, and I'm like, oh my God. I'm saying, well, your country's not the brightest. So, this is technical glitches. Are you sure you haven't done it? He's screaming at me. And I'm like, I haven't done anything. What are you talking about? My passport's in your hand. Think, logic. And then he just storms off again.
Okay.
And I'm like, I'm breathing inside. I have this little pamphlet of God's picture my mom gave me, and I'm just reading it, and I'm holding on. I'm like, Mom, and I swear to God, I felt my friend, because I did actually make a friend. Rest in peace. She passed away in the country, and I know she was waiting, and so was the lawyer that had spoken to prior, because even the lawyer said, you need just to get the hell out of here. Once you cross that border, you are good. You are free. Try to cross that goddamn border. And so I'm waiting. He comes back again, and I'm like, Jesus. He goes, you tell me right now. He's like talking to me really abrupt and aggressively.
Yeah.
What did you do? Did you do something to the passport? And I say, I haven't done anything. What are you talking about? It's in your hand. He goes, why is it coming up stolen? I'm saying, obviously there's a mistake. Think. And again, I'm repeating the same thing to him. Like, just think logically. My passport's in your hand. Stop this. And I'm trying to stay calm. Anyway, this was back and forth for an hour. my heart, I think I aged 10 years. And that month was 10.
Yeah.
And so what happens is finally he gets in the car, slams the door. And I'm thinking, I don't want to ask him because I don't know. I said, what happened? He goes, nothing. So he puts it in drive and we pass.
You crossed the border.
Inside of me, I didn't want to show him again. I have to act because if he sees I'm so relieved, he's like, because he knew me. And the man know. He knew.
He knew.
This girl's up to something. He could just look at me. Oh, that's smart.
That's why he was mad.
Yeah. And I was in the back and I'm like, I was like, Jesus Christ.
The baby's in the car.
Baby's in the car. I'm like, yes, I am out of this continent. I am onto another continent. Now, okay, so now we're in the South, mind you, in the South. I still have to get to the North. So we get to the South, and again, we have to make our way over to the airport because that's where I needed to get up to the North because that's where my family's at. Remember, I don't have any money. I don't have anything with me. He technically has her passport. So it's really hard. So I need to get, so somehow they say, okay, let's go fly to Euro Disney. Okay, so let's do that. No, but we're going to do it from here. I was like, how am I going to stay here in the South? I have no money, no car. I can't drive. I can't just get stuck here. So I had to get to the North. And somehow we ended up going to the travel agency. And I told the son, come in with me. Well, he sent the son in to sort of spy on me to see what I was going to say.
Right.
To make sure I wasn't going to say anything. So I went into there and I told the lady, we need a flight. She goes, yeah, well, there's no flights from here. I mean, I'm sorry, the flights are from here. They're not from the North. And I was like, oh, Jesus. Okay. And then I said, okay, ma'am, can't you just find something? Because everything has to come out from the North, not from the South. No, the flights. I was like, okay, well, go tell your father. So when he left, because I know the son was there to spy on me, to report everything back to him. I felt all the moments, every moment I was being spied on. And I told the lady, I say, please, me and my daughter are 2 American citizens. You need to help me. Please. I just started crying. And I said, please find a flight from the North, not from the South. Please, I'm begging you to help me. And she just looked at me. I say, I need to be with my family. I need to get up there. I can't stay here. I have nothing. And this man is refusing to let me and my daughter go. And she just looked at me and she's like, okay. And then she just found tickets miraculously within the budget he was aiming for. Boom, printed them out, gave them back to her. I said, here, but we have to leave from the North. And he goes, we have to drive away. I said, yes, we do. This is the only trip that's available. There's no tickets down here. And he looked at me, are you sure? I said, go ask her. And then the son said, yeah, Dad, that's what she said. Look, this is the printout. Boom, we're off to the North. That lady, I don't know what her name was, but God bless her, because she looked at me with such eyes of compassion and she understood and she did what she had to do in that computer and she got me the tickets. Because if she wouldn't, I would have been stuck in the South and I had no money. And what happened? He was this close to saying, you know what? The hell with Euro Disney, we're driving back. I didn't want that.
Right.
So, fast forward, we go, we fly out, everything, again, the Academy Award acting here, kept going. And we went into Euro Disney. I just wanted to see my daughter smile and just.
So you actually did go to France.
Yes.
Then. Okay.
We went there. Again, me and him were just not even talking, nothing. Everything was just civil.
The kids.
Right, for the kids.
Exactly, the kids. And then I said, this is it. Coming back, we on the airport, like I say, Madrid and Barajas. This is where we'll stop.
And that is a huge, huge airport.
Huge airport. And I said, it's now or never.
Yeah.
It's now or never.
And Madrid police is no joke.
Ooh. Yeah. I mean, it's a country that's not going to tolerate anything.
Yeah, Madrid is like New York.
Right.
Yeah, 100%.
Beautiful country.
Beautiful country.
Big shout out. And the food. Anyway, so we're coming. I'm shaking again. It's a matter of, what you need to do. You know what's going to happen. And then, but you have to act. Because if he sees something is in you and, But then I felt more empowered because I was in Europe.
Right.
I was not in that
you were
country.
in Madrid. Yeah.
Right.
This, you can't play with me here now.
Rebecca's back.
Yeah.
Rebecca's back.
New York, Marine, Rebecca's back.
My mojo's back.
The mojo's coming in.
Yeah.
So what happened is that coming off the plane, I told my daughter, I said, baby, whatever mommy does, wherever mommy goes, you go with me. she's at this point, she's 4 or 5. Yeah. She said, yeah, I think she's 5. Yeah. I said, you stay with mommy no matter what happens. And I'm shaking because I knew we're going to get the luggage. I'm going to grab my luggage and I am not leaving from here. This was already set in my head. Okay. I mean, this is months of planning this in my head because this was my only way out. And then we get in the luggage and I grab the luggage and then I'm shaking and I said, remember, stay with mommy. And I remember seeing a guy behind me, which he looked, by the way, like a Marine. And he's listening to me because I was speaking to my daughter in English. And he's listening to me to say to my daughter, stay with mommy. Okay. Don't leave mommy. Mommy's going to be here. Mommy's going to be sad, but you have to stay with mommy. Don't go with daddy. And the guy's looking at me. And I remember him looking at me, and I was like, that's it. We going outside with the luggage. I just stopped literally outside with the luggage, my daughter in hand. And I said, I'm not going back. And he's like, he looks at me and say, what? He goes, just shut up. Just get in the car. So I'm not going back. And everything that I had been holding back for 1.5 years, 2 years with all the crap, I say, I just went off on him. I said, how dare you have done? Because remember, I could not fight with him in his country. Right. I had to keep my mouth. I had to, that's another thing. You're in the midst of this war and you can't express yourself.
Right.
I can't say
you can't defend yourself. You can't express yourself.
No, you have to shut up. Because, and also he was a person that was not very talkative. Mm-hmm. It's also that culture. Men are not the ones that, oh, come, baby, let's speak. Let's talk about, no, at least not in there. So it was very difficult. And I just unleashed months and, actually up to this point, 1.5 years of just things that I had. You did this to me. You blocked me. How dare you go back on your word after everything? I am not going back to that country. You treated me. You put your... I just said everything.
So it's fair to say that there was a scene at the airport.
Yeah, a huge scene. I was trying not to make it. And he said, no, get in the car right now and let's just go. Now, mind you, his son is watching. His son, I think at this point was like 11. I think something like he starts crying. He's like, what's happening? He didn't know. He's a child. Right. And my daughter's like looking back and forth at us and mommy, daddy, and I said, I'm not going back. And he's trying to, I said, no, don't touch my daughter. And so for the next, I would say, time just to still 2 hours. 2 hours because he refused to. I said, you get in there and get the hell out. I'm staying here. I'm going to call my family and I'm not going back. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what happened. We went back and forth. People were seeing us cry, scream at each other. A couple of times the police came. Well, people will say, is everything okay? I say, no, everything is fine. Everything is fine. So that's one thing. People were looking and seeing there's some tension going on in here.
But when the police came, did you tell them to help you?
Well, it was not police. It was just like the security. Security. Yes. It was security that came. Everything is okay, ma'am. I said, yes. Because again, I didn't want him to get arrested. Right. That's not what I was aiming for. I just wanted my freedom. I wanted my safety. I wanted everything to work out, in the correct way. It's the father of my daughter. I didn't want to go to jail.
Right.
And I told him, please just go. Just leave me here. I cannot go back to that country. You want to make things work out? We have to make it work out from here. I am not going back. There's no rights. And, it's just
the
everything.
Whole thing. Yeah.
The whole thing. And my daughter started crying. She started hugging him. I was like, you get off of her. You get off her now. Put her back. You are not taking her. And if you do take her, then I was willing to call the police. I said, you go back. I am not going back. I'm going to stay here with my family. And that is it. And, again, like you said, Rebecca's back. Mm-hmm, I got my mojo at that moment because I finally felt free. And,
right.
And 2 hours back and forth. So finally he said, okay, just stay here and I'll be back. I said, no problem. And then, he took off with his son back to his country. I stayed with my daughter there. I called my family and took my daughter. But at least I was free.
And that was it? You were now starting a new life again.
Yeah.
Wow.
Initially, yes. Initially, yeah, because,
But that was it. That was the moment where you were released from captivity in a way, in a way. And that's where your life...
Checkmate. I
won. You
right.
won.
I won.
Well, congratulations for your courage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That must have been terrifying. And the nerves. Oh my God, I have to do this.
Yeah.
Play it off.
Chills listening to your story this whole time.
And just playing it off because remember, your body shows you're nervous, you're sad. Yeah. And I'm just there, cold stone, looking at him, and inside my stomach is turning. I mean, that moment at that border was just I mean, that was the longest hour in my life. Him back and forth storming, and just every time my heart would go up.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you had to smile and say, no, I don't know. It's just a technical glitch, but inside you knew.
You know what you did.
You know, and
you know what's
inside
happening.
I was overwhelmed. I'm like, how in the world did that computer somehow put my passport and not my daughter's?
They flagged the wrong one.
How was
the wrong one.
That was God.
Yeah.
That was God.
I mean, that entire experience redefined strength for you. It really did.
Yeah. Because and it's sad to say, because there's a lot of other women that have not made it out.
Yeah.
A lot of other women that have been in my situation. And I would say women to that country too, that, may be from there, but in the same situation as me.
They can't.
Yeah.
They can't.
Yeah, they
And they
can't.
can't get out.
Yeah. And I think that's why we always go back to, like, before you make these big changes or you're moving to another country, you really do need to ask the right questions.
Yes.
Like, what are your legal rights as a woman in this country?
even
that's
if you're
a basic
visiting.
one. Yeah, even visiting.
Visiting a country.
That's one, honestly, that's one of the main reasons I travel quite a bit. I'm very fortunate to be able to. And I have no interest in going to the Middle East. None.
Yeah.
Not even Dubai.
Yeah. We went to Dubai. It's beautiful. I've been there a couple of times.
I'm sure it is. I mean, I have friends who have gone and had only say wonderful things, but I have zero interest in going to the Middle East.
It's sad because, these countries, the end, they're beautiful. They have beautiful culture. The food, oh my God, the food. It started with the food.
Right.
But again, the women, secondary.
Yeah.
And it's sad because, at the end, women and men, for us, we're equals. But in these countries, it's not. And I've seen, I've said, I've done business in Dubai. I've been to Dubai a couple of times, and women literally walk behind the men. They're covered. There you have to be covered. Well, I wasn't covered because I'm an American. So they respect that a lot. And I can tell you the women there are just secondary.
So I have a question for you after hearing your amazing story. If you could go back in time, right? What questions do you wish you would have asked before moving abroad, before doing this? What do you think you would have asked that could have been like, oh no, I'm not going with him?
We're done differently.
Yeah.
I would have assured myself that I would have the freedom to come back with my daughter at any moment. I didn't have that guarantee. I just took his word for it. And I just, I wish I would have had that.
Do you think even that would even still be possible?
No.
Probably
knowing now, no, because with the legal, the way it goes there, if you decide to divorce, at least in that country, and I don't know if the other country is the same, but at least I was told by the lawyer, if you decide to divorce your husband, that's a shame on you.
Right.
So because you're deciding to divorce, you get nothing.
You relinquish your rights.
That's
your
it.
everything.
How dare you leave your husband?
Yeah.
And even though I explained to him, I said, but look what he's done to me. Look what he's doing still to me. Still, he's a man.
He's the man.
Right.
He's the man. You have no right to leave him. I was like, but okay. So, and again, I was like, okay, but he didn't tell you to leave. Okay. So you set the house on fire and I leave. Oh, but I didn't tell you to go, but you set the house on fire. So you gave me no choice.
Right.
Again, it's just like you pushed into this corner, and if you react, especially being a woman, how dare you?
Yeah. I think for me, one of the most important things is that if you're in a situation like this, or maybe something a little similar, I don't think any woman should feel embarrassed for asking questions about, like, how is it there? How's it going to be there for me? Like, ask questions. And if they don't want to answer, or they're dismissive, that's a major red flag that maybe you should not be going to this country because of love.
Yes. Yeah. No. And again, goes now looking back, never give up on your dreams. I mean, by this time I would have been retired. I would have been so set up.
If you stayed in New York, you mean?
In state of New York, or in the state of New York, I would have been, so far in my career. And again, I gave that up at that moment for love. And, and if this reaches out any young woman thinking of giving up, no, let me go into business. I'm not saying that every time is going to be that way, but the odds, they're kind of against you. Just don't give up on your dreams. I gave up all my dreams, my career,
for him,
everything for him, for a life that I thought we were going to have together. And in the end, it didn't turn out that way. It gave me, and God sends you messages. That's one thing. I want you to listen to this. God sends you messages. Listen to them. And I'll tell you one message real quick when I first started with him, I was in front of, I was walking to school. He was in jail at this moment. And I was so devastated. And out of nowhere, I'm walking to the university. Then you know those crazy people. Well, I'm not saying crazy people, but these people, you could tell because he was like all erratic in the street giving out flyers. I thought he was a Jehovah's Witness, but he was not. Mm-hmm. You know, these people, it's just like, what are you doing? And he comes out of nowhere. I'm like, oh my God. And he gives me a pamphlet. He goes, get out while you still can. Right in front of the church. Right in front, and I look at, and I'm like,
that's crazy.
And at that moment, I was devastated. I think I had an argument with him on the phone, and I'm like, and I remember my friend telling me, you just met this guy. Wow. Why are you going through it? Why are you still persisting on staying with him? You just met him. I was like, but I can't leave him. I feel bad for him. He's alone. He doesn't deserve it. And then this man just comes and goes straight wham. Get out while you still can. Yeah, and he
crazy
walks away.
That it happens. It's happened to me.
And I look up in the church. I'm like,
you don't think about it at the time, but when you think back and you reflect, you're like,
messages.
That was a message.
That was a message for me.
Messages, and you don't listen. You don't listen. And so, and I do believe that God will send you a message, soft one, and second, and third, and then it starts progressively getting worse. And I think this is as worse as it gets.
I think it's also important for women to hear because we're emotional creatures. We're loving, we're nurturing. And when we see someone that we love and care about suffering or they're in pain or you feel like maybe there's an injustice, we tend to, because we love them and care for them, we tend to be like, I can't abandon them. I can't do this. I can't do that. While you are self-sabotaging your own life.
Right. Well, that's what us Latinas do. We grow up that way.
And we were raised to be that way.
Yes.
Exactly. We were raised to be that way. And that is where I want one of the takeaways of your stories to be is that no relationship should cause you to self-sabotage your own life because of love. Right. And anybody who says, how can you abandon me at this hard time? Well, then maybe you shouldn't have done that when you were in your 20s. Maybe you shouldn't have done a misdemeanor knowing that you were in hot water already. Yeah. And being that we were married and already had a child, you should have thought about us before you did that. Yeah. But you see, your mindset is, I love him. And
it was a mistake.
It was a mistake.
Right.
And the takeaway should be like, there's consequences to also what you did.
Yeah. But also the whole thing, also bringing in the immigration, considering the state of our country's in right now, immigration to say it's not fair. I think when these things happen, and many stories I've heard, as one of my friends too, it happened, you can't come back 20 years later and say, hey, by the way, you did something back in 19, I don't know. We're going to bring that up. And now, can't do that. I think one of the things that we say, if they would have just deported him from the beginning, all this story would not even have happened.
Right.
Nip
it up in the bud.
Exactly. Yeah. You okay, so I'm never going to be a resident. Okay, you know what? Let me just get the hell out. Right? And he said, I would have done that. But, they give you this false hope. And it's true, because when I would speak to the lawyer, it was this false hope. No, he's going to get back his papers. Not a problem. And, and if you're married, so it's just this false hope. And I know it's all for money. I'm sorry to say that, but it's true.
And you spent so much too.
Yeah. And I'm just one. Millions of people spend. The immigration
thousands of dollars,
a lot of money. And it's always on that false hope.
Yeah.
That this case is different. He's going to get his papers back. He's not going to get deported. And again, and it's also your faith. Something like this shakes you to the core.
Yes, it does.
At one moment, you say, I did everything I was supposed to. I was the good wife. I was the good mother. Why is this happening to me? So that faith in you, it goes away.
But you got your power back, Rebecca. You got your power back and your freedom.
Yes, I got my freedom.
Thank you for sharing your story, because it's a very powerful one. And I think there's a lot of women who are going to listen to your show and be like, wow, this was inspirational, hopeful, or maybe they know somebody that's in a similar situation and can be like, hey, don't do that. Listen to Rebecca's story.
Yeah. Don't put all your eggs in one basket,
right?
In a sense, and you can't put everything in just one place. And that's exactly what I did, because at the end, remember, I worked hard. I built a business, an empire with him, and he stayed with everything. And so did somebody else, and they're enjoying it. And I ended up with nothing. Well, I can't say nothing. I ended up with my freedom.
But you're in a country.
And most important, my daughter.
You're in a country with your daughter, and you have women's rights.
Yes.
And a beautiful country.
I have my freedom. But like I said, in the end, it was my daughter.
Yeah.
My
God
daughter
bless you
was, that's mine.
That's all that matters.
You know, you could take whatever you want. You could take the car, you could take the husband. You
All
could
of those
take
things can be replaced.
But my daughter, that's, as a mother, you can understand.
Hallelujah.
Absolutely.
Nobody can take that away from you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode on Red Lips Real Talk. Our guest's story is a reminder that even the strongest, smartest, and most capable women can face situations they never imagined. Strength, intelligence, and discipline are valuable, but they cannot replace awareness, preparation, and the courage to trust your instincts. Freedom and choice are negotiable. Protect your autonomy, know your rights, and never ignore warning signs, even when love, loyalty, and family feel like the most important things in the world. Love should never cost your life, your independence, or your safety. This story is not about victimhood. It is a lesson for every woman. Pay attention, plan carefully, and make decisions that protect your future, your child, and your life. Awareness, preparation, and self-respect are the foundation of empowerment, and no amount of love is worth giving up your freedom.
Hasta la próxima.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to subscribe to our show so you don't miss an episode.
We will be dropping an episode every 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah. No, like seriously. Subscribe now.
So just chill to the next episode. Follow us on Insta and TikTok.
Hasta la próxima.